Damn it, 76ers, you had one job. All you had to do was defeat the Phoenix Suns tonight, and you couldn't get it done. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Pelicans, they understood the assignment. They went to Los Angeles, Crypto.com Arena, and they beat down the Los Angeles Clippers to do the Kings a solid. This is why the Kings aren't relying on anybody else. This is why one of the mottos of the Kings this year is control what you can control. The Kings did what they needed to do to clinch tonight, beating the Utah Jazz here inside the Golden One Center, but it still wasn't enough. The magic number is down to 1. We all have to wait a little bit longer for the Sacramento Kings to clinch, but believe it or not, the soonest case scenario for them to clinch is now not the best case scenario. I'll explain right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season long and soon to be for the first time ever all postseason long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10. And to be completely honest with you, even though I knew the scenario, we all knew the scenario since this morning. If the Sacramento Kings beat the Utah Jazz tonight, the Philadelphia 76ers beat the Phoenix Suns tonight, and the New Orleans Pelicans beat the Los Angeles Clippers tonight, then the Sacramento Kings would officially clinch a playoff spot and end their 16-year playoff drought, the longest playoff drought in NBA history. But to be completely honest, I came into this building expecting it not to get done. Why? Not because I didn't expect the Philadelphia 76ers to beat the Phoenix Suns. I didn't expect the New Orleans Pelicans to beat the Los Angeles Clippers, especially with how much the Clippers have to play for, with home court advantage hanging in the balance with both them and the Phoenix Suns jockeying for that fourth seed spot. So a big game for the Los Angeles Clippers. They fall flat. So you know what? Let's start with that. Shout out New Orleans Pelicans. We appreciate you here in Sacramento, even though you've been a tough matchup for the Kings at times. We appreciate you for understanding the assignment, for getting the job done, and doing a solid for a small market team. Really means the world to us. Unfortunately, you weren't the only ones that the Kings had to rely on. Philly, I know James Harden was out, but come on, man. Second night of a back-to-back for the Phoenix Suns after the Kings beat them comfortably last night, and you couldn't get the job done? Come on. It's not even like you're trying to hurt the Sacramento Kings or sabotage the Sacramento Kings in any way. You're in the East, unless, of course, you're worried about the Sacramento Kings meeting you in the NBA Finals, which you have to worry about getting through Boston. You have to worry about Milwaukee to even get that far. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm having a lot of fun. Ultimately, the point is, this is why the Sacramento Kings never wanted to put themselves in a position where they had to rely on other teams. Now, it's a lot better for the Sacramento Kings to be in this position where they know they're going to clinch. It's only a matter of time, and it just would have happened sooner or if they had gotten the help they needed from other teams. Like, imagine being in the scenario that some teams are in where you haven't done enough yourself to get in, or you're on the cusp and you're relying on other teams to win or lose in order for you just to get in, just to get to the position that you want. So this is a way better scenario for the Sacramento Kings, and ultimately, based off the conversations that we had with Mike Brown and some of the players after the game, the Kings players aren't really paying attention to the scenarios that got the Kings in tonight or didn't get the Kings in tonight. They only cared about handling their business. They only cared about winning. Their goal is 50 wins, not necessarily clinching as soon as possible. Our goal, my goal, the fans' goal, is to see the Sacramento Kings clinch in this building. And that's the key, because there is a good chance now that the Sacramento Kings clinch tomorrow on an off day Sunday. Now, I'm not 100% certain with the math, to be completely honest with you. You should have seen the press conference room and the media room after this game was over. Everybody had their phones out. Everybody had their computers out. It looked like a group math project as we were all trying to figure out the scenarios of what needs to happen for the Sacramento Kings to clinch tomorrow. As far as we understand, the Minnesota Timberwolves play the Golden State Warriors at Golden State tomorrow. If the Timberwolves lose, I believe that means the Sacramento Kings clinch. So you might be saying, well, then go Warriors, right? Let's root for the Minnesota Timberwolves to lose so the Kings can secure that playoff spot. No. We do not want the Kings to clinch on an off day. Would it be the end of the world? Absolutely not. But after 16 long years of no playoffs, after this fan base has suffered and continued to support through all of the crap over the last 16 years, we deserve to have that moment be in front of 18,000 people in this building and another few thousand outside in the streets of Sacramento ready to party. What we want is for the Sacramento Kings to clinch by beating the Minnesota Timberwolves on Monday night. That is what we should be rooting for. So unless there is another mathematical scenario that comes out, which at this point I don't know if there is, I don't think there is, but I could be surprised. Unless there is another scenario that comes out tomorrow, we should all be rooting for the Golden State Warriors to lose. We should all be rooting for the Minnesota Timberwolves to win so that they can come into Sacramento on a second night of a back-to-back. Maybe they'll expend all their energy with Karl Anthony Towns back in that game in order to beat the Golden State Warriors. They'll come into Sacramento and be a little bit tired. Maybe De'Aaron Fox will be back, and I have an update on De'Aaron Fox's status for you later on in the podcast. He did not play in tonight's game. That's what we're rooting for, them to come in a little tired, a little winded, and the Kings take advantage, even though for some reason they've struggled as they were rested against a team on the second night of a back-to-back in this building. Hopefully that won't be the case tomorrow night. We want the Sacramento Kings to clinch a playoff spot in this building in front of their home crowd. That is what we all should be rooting for. Now, if you just don't care, if you're saying, hey, just clinch as soon as possible, I guess more power to you. That's fine. I'm not saying that you're wrong for feeling that way, but I think the majority of us, the vast majority of us would say we want this moment to be in Sacramento. We want it to be in this building. We want it to be in front of 18,000 plus fans. We want to celebrate this moment together instead of hearing about it in the grocery store while buying groceries and preparing for the week ahead or getting ready for the week. Or maybe you go to bed early on Sunday night to get ready for a Monday and you wake up the next day and realize the Kings have already clinched and the celebration is over, right? No one wants to celebrate on a Sunday. Let's make a Monday better by the Kings clinching in this building against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that's what I say we. I think I'm speaking for everybody. I could be wrong. If I'm not speaking for you, I apologize. I'm going to use the universal me really to talk about me. Maybe this is a selfish thing. I'll raise my hand and say I'm selfish. I want to see the Sacramento Kings do it in this building, not just because I will be here to witness it, but because I think that's what the city of Sacramento deserves. So go Timberwolves tomorrow. We believe in you. Do what Philadelphia could not. Handle your business, beat the Golden State Warriors, and then come into Sacramento and maybe lay down for a 3 count so the Kings can pin you and hoist the championship trophy of ending a 16-year playoff drought, the longest playoff drought in NBA history, and currently the longest active playoff drought in North American sports. Come on. You can do it. You can do it, Minnesota Timberwolves and Golden State. We're probably going to face you in the playoffs. Help us out one time. Maybe just have a night off. Steph Curry, maybe have a bad shooting night. Just help us out here. Give us the scenario that we deserve. All right, let's talk about Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray tonight, 22 points. 6 of 12 from three-point range, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Now, believe it or not, I'm going to start with a negative just to get it out of the way. Mike Brown was very complimentary of Keegan after the game. You're going to hear a soundbite here in just a second of Mike Brown making his case for why Keegan is a no-brainer for the All-NBA first team. But Mike didn't necessarily call out, but he mentioned in his praise and critique of Keegan Murray tonight that 2 rebounds is not good enough. And he's right. 2 rebounds from a 6'8", 6'9" wing is not good enough. And Keegan knows it. Keegan's had big nights where he stepped up and rebounded the ball like needed. And the last time that Mike Brown did this, the last time that Mike commented on Keegan's rebounding or lack thereof in a press conference, the next handful of games, Keegan looked a lot better on the glass. So maybe Mike is just trying to motivate him again. I hope Keegan gives that response because the Kings need all hands on deck on the boards. Thankfully, for the second straight game, Kevin Huerter stepped up with a big night on the glass. But that's the negative out of the way because let's talk about the positive. Keegan Murray is now 4 3-pointers away from breaking Donovan Mitchell's record for most 3-pointers by a rookie in NBA history. He's going to break it. Hopefully the Kings can clinch. How great would this be? The Kings clinch a playoff spot and Keegan Murray breaks the record in the same game Monday night. How are we not all rooting for that scenario, right? Come on. Come on, Keegan. You can do it. Come on, Timberwolves. Make it happen. Keegan was red hot to start this game. He had 14 points in just the first quarter. Like, it's only a matter of time before Keegan breaks this record, and it's like the record doesn't necessarily have to mean a lot. I mean, it's a big deal. It's a significant accomplishment, right? But Keegan has proven over and over and over again that he can fit how the Sacramento Kings need him to fit. And I'm going to talk a little bit here about the trial by fire defensively that the Sacramento Kings are putting Keegan Murray through. I commented on it, and we talked about it a little bit after last night's victory over the Phoenix Suns. But before we get to that, here is head coach Mike Brown making his case for why Keegan Murray deserves to be on the All-NBA first team, and Matthew Dellavedova, who got a lot of playing time tonight with De'Aaron Fox out, who actually won the Defensive Player of the Game chain. Matthew Dellavedova spoke about Keegan Murray and his future and had some pretty significant praise for the rookie.
If he breaks the NBA three-point record that Donovan Mitchell, or when he breaks it, because he's going to break it, but when he breaks it, that has to mean something to everybody out there, especially the people voting. So, again, if he breaks that record and he's not first-team all-rookie, especially with our team record, then all this is bullshit in my opinion, because he deserves it. That record is like monumental in my opinion when it comes to rookies. You're talking about Donovan Mitchell has it right now, and look what he's doing in this league. So to me, Keegan's job as a rookie is 100, and this is, I'm not trying to take it because Banchero down in Orlando, I mean, great player. Obviously, Chet's hurt. Everybody's doing something as rookies. But to break that record with your team sitting in the third spot and going to the playoffs, and you've been starting for this team all year, come on, man. That's a no-brainer for first team all-rookie.
I don't know if Keegan even knows he's that close, but he's having an incredible year, and he's just, humble guy from the country, and I think he's going to be a superstar in this league, and he's already so good, and the game comes so easy to him, and I think playing with guys like Fox and Domas definitely helps take the pressure off him. But he's figured out some great chemistry with both of those guys, and coming off Domas handoffs and cutting, and he shows some other parts of his game every now and then that let you know that he's going to be even more special in the future.
I pointed this out last night. Keegan Murray is getting targeted on the defensive end of the floor. He's having to switch a lot on good offensive players, and they are going right at him. In fact, a lot of teams are enforcing that switch with screen setting. So Keegan is going to be getting isolated a lot, especially in the playoffs. I was having a conversation with David Locke today. He's the radio voice of the Utah Jazz and the host of the Locked On Jazz podcast. And David and I were discussing how rare it is for a rookie to have a significant role on a playoff team. Like, think back to recent champions, think back to deep runs, think back to just playoff teams in general. There aren't a lot of rookies that are getting significant minutes on that team, let alone a rookie being a starter. And Keegan Murray is going to be a starter for the Sacramento Kings in the playoffs. Teams are going to come after him. And there have been nights where he has not looked good. I actually asked Mike Brown about that before the game started, and Mike basically said trial by fire is exactly what he needs to go through. If he accepts the challenge, and if he's up to the challenge and he does a good job, he'll stay out there. If not, he'll sit on the bench next to me. It's as black and white as that. And the good news is Keegan has been very receptive to that. So I asked Keegan after the game about that trial by fire, how he thinks he's handling it, and this is what he had to say. Coach Brown was talking pregame about kind of a trial by fire for you as a rookie, especially on the defensive end, teams coming after you and putting you to the test. There's not a lot of rookies that get significant roles in playoff scenarios. How do you feel you're handling that trial by fire, and how much do you appreciate the belief in the team and you to handle that assignment?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in college I wasn't playing really the wing spot. I was kind of playing the 4 or 5 at times, so it's obviously been an adjustment guarding the ball and things like that. I think it's been good for me and my development to see what it's like to guard the best wing offensive players in the league. So I know that I'll trial and error with it, but eventually it'll click for me, and I'm just trying to work as hard as I can on that end. So.
It's time for our Nissan Most Electric Player of the Week, brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. And speaking of Keegan Murray, he is our Electric Player of the Week. He has been red hot from three-point range as of late. I know he had a little bit of a tough game the other night against the Phoenix Suns, but I don't just want to talk about the offensive output. We know what he's doing from beyond the three-point line. We know how good he can be on the offensive end of the floor. I thought it was significant that Keegan Murray last night against the Phoenix Suns picked up 2 quick fouls really, really early in the game. In tonight's game, he didn't pick up a foul until the 4th quarter. That's game-to-game growth, and we've seen Keegan do that a lot, whether it's on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, rebounding, assisting, attacking the basket aggressively. Keegan has received notes, and he has done well to put himself in the best position to succeed, and he's accepted the challenges placed in front of him. He's brilliantly fierce, fiercely elegant, stunningly powerful, elegantly powerful, just like the Nissan Ariya in so many ways. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pinned-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence all in one electric vehicle. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. I don't know if I can accurately explain it, but I'm going to try to explain it. Let's be a little brutally honest about this game tonight, okay? Just from a pure basketball standpoint, it wasn't a very good game. I think this could be the fatigue talking, because I have the greatest job in the world. I'm not trying to complain, so please don't take this as a complaint. I left the Golden One Center last night after the Phoenix Suns game at 2 a.m. So I guess I left the Golden One Center this morning at 2 a.m. Went home. I have a 1-year-old at home. He's up at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't sleep too much last night, and I was definitely tired, to say the least, at tonight's game. So, again, not complaining, but it could have just been my fatigue and kind of my tired state and me not really tapping into the energy and the feel of the game as much as I normally do. But this game did just have a really weird energy, a really weird flow about it. And I don't necessarily know how to explain it. It just was discombobulated. Like, the officiating was bad. The flow was bad. The Kings weren't shooting the ball well, and we're used to things going a lot smoother for the Kings on the offensive end of the floor than it did tonight at times, except they had a great 3rd quarter. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But tonight's game just didn't feel like a very fun and good basketball game. Again, great moments. The Kings ultimately won 121-113, so who cares? Kings won. Doesn't matter if it's pretty or not. And there were definitely pretty moments, don't get me wrong. But I don't know. I'm curious if the 18,000 people, and it's not because of the fans. The fans brought the energy all night long, as always. It was Slamson's birthday tonight, so he had some of his friends and fellow mascots in the league here celebrating with him, which was a lot of fun. I don't know what it was about the game. It just had just a weird feel, a weird vibe about it. One of the moments I want to talk about is Malik Monk's technical foul and then being tossed. Now, make sure you hear that correctly, because as far as I understand, Malik Monk got 1 technical foul and then was tossed. Normally, it's 2 techs. That's an automatic ejection. So typically, you'll see a player get issued a technical foul. They continue to argue. They get issued a 2nd technical foul. They get tossed from the game. In Malik Monk's case, he went up for a dunk, was clearly fouled. Watch the replay. It's not debatable. He's hit on the wrist. Now, did Malik overreact a little bit? Yes, he did. I don't think it was that massive of a moment and that egregious of a foul call for him to have the reaction that he did. But I could tell immediately, and I think most in the arena could tell immediately, that there was only one way that it was going to end. Because after he was fouled, missed the dunk, Utah Jazz start going back the other way. He didn't even attempt to get back on defense. He went right up to the referee, and he ran side by side with the referee up the floor, and I'm sure they were exchanging pleasantries. Malik said something. Some were saying that he didn't direct it at the referee. Regardless, he clearly was agitated. He said something, received that technical foul, and got tossed out. That was the only way that was going to go. There was no chance that Malik was just going to get a technical and he was going to walk away and cool down. He was fired up. after that non-call. Maybe he was mad because it interrupted his poster. I have no idea why Malik acted or reacted so fiercely to that one moment. There certainly was some built-up frustration from the Kings as a whole with how this game was officiated at times, but it didn't surprise me at all that Malik Monk got tossed. Then again, it also added more of an energy to this building and more of an energy to that Kings team that maybe helped them. I don't know. It didn't necessarily change how the referees were officiating the game, so it wasn't like a Toronto scenario earlier on in the season when the Kings were not getting foul calls at all. Mike Brown got tossed, and then the Kings rallied and closed out that game and actually won that game. It wasn't like that, but it definitely changed the energy a little bit, at least woke me up, to say the least. Domantas Sabonis, we got to talk about this really quick. He finished with his 60th double-double. 60th double-double of the season. 16 points, 15 rebounds. 60 double-doubles. That is absurd. And I've been one to admit, like, sometimes I get a little used to Domantas finishing with double-doubles. Hell, half the time, I mean, he had this one before halftime. Half the time, he nearly has it at the end of the first quarter. Like, Domantas just fills up a stat sheet. So, double-doubles, I'm not going to say aren't as impressive, but we kind of expect them at this point, right? But still, even if you expect Domantas Sabonis to get a double-double, having 60 in a season with still a handful of games remaining, that's pretty incredible. Domantas Sabonis has been an absolute beast. And speaking of beasts, Walker Kessler, I guess Walker Kessler can already be added to the list of Sacramento Kings killers because clearly he likes to play against the Kings. He ate the Kings alive tonight. He also was very good against the Sacramento Kings when they lost in Utah, was that last week or a handful of games ago? He finished with 31 points, 14 of 16 from the field. You talk about efficiency, my goodness, and 11 rebounds for his own double-double. Doesn't have nearly as many as Domantas Sabonis does, but look, I like the future of the Utah Jazz. Again, they were still missing their best three players, one would argue, although Walker Kessler might be up there at this point. They were missing Lauri Markkanen tonight. Who knows how different the game would have been had Lauri played. But with Lauri, with Kessler, with the amount of draft picks that they got simply from that Minnesota Timberwolves trade, like they have all the assets in the world to accelerate a rebuild. I like what the Utah Jazz are doing. I really like what the Utah Jazz are doing. Now, I'm glad the Sacramento Kings beat them 3 out of 4 times. It should have been 4 out of 4, but regardless, I like what the Utah Jazz are doing. I respect them. Let's talk about the weird kind of quarter breakdowns really quick. Jazz second quarter, the Jazz beat up on the Kings pretty good in the second quarter, mainly because the Kings offensively went really, really cold in this quarter, but they outscored the Kings 35-23 in the second quarter. Then in the third quarter, which was the big quarter for the Sacramento Kings last night against Phoenix, the Kings had another big quarter outscoring the Jazz 35-17. Remember how bad the third quarter used to always be for Luke Walton's teams and Kings teams of old? Like, we used to dread the first quarter. We used to want to end the game at halftime, even if the Kings were down, because it was either going to get worse or the Kings were going to blow a lead just in that third quarter alone. It always happened. The third quarter was scary. Now the third quarter, more often than not, can be looked at as promising for the Sacramento Kings with the halftime adjustments they usually make. They did so again in tonight's game. And then the fourth quarter, it wasn't like the Utah Jazz dominated the Kings in the fourth quarter. It was 35-31 in favor of the Jazz in the fourth quarter. I just want to talk about Utah scoring 35 points in the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter defense, especially in close games, has typically been where the Sacramento Kings have actually been at their best this year. They've been around top 10 in defensive rating and defensive efficiency in the fourth quarter. That's going to be something that they are going to need to lean on in the playoffs. Tonight, giving up 35 points, it's not good. Like, it's not okay, especially in a game where you're playing against a worse team. You're on your home floor. Granted, the Sacramento Kings still won the games. They still secured the lead. They won by 8 points, so it's not like it was in massive jeopardy at any point or the Kings were at risk of really, truly falling apart. But this is where you would like to see the Kings close games out easier or handle their business a little easier and put games away earlier than they did tonight. That's pretty much all I'm saying about that. I mentioned I have an update on De'Aaron Fox. It's not a massive update. Just I'll share with you why De'Aaron Fox didn't play in tonight's game. So we talked to Mike Brown before the game, and Mike didn't have any major update on De'Aaron's status or how his hamstring is doing. He just shared with us that De'Aaron was not going to be playing in tonight's game, and he was making that decision for precautionary reasons. Kind of the same vibe that we got when we saw him leave in the third quarter with the injury against Phoenix last night. It's not that De'Aaron can't go. He wants to go. Mike Brown and the Kings are holding him back because, one, they felt that they could beat the Utah Jazz without him tonight, which thankfully they did, and two, because they're not just gearing up for a playoff series, they're gearing up for a deep playoff run. This team believes that they're making it out of the first round, and I know a lot of fans from talking to you, that is now the expectation for this team, is to make it out of the first round. But it doesn't just stop there. Like, this Kings team doesn't want to make it out of the first round, and that's their NBA Finals. They have aspirations of winning the whole damn thing. Mike Brown has obviously been there before. There are players on this roster that have been there before. They know what it takes, how long of a grind it is. I mean, think about this. If the Sacramento Kings make it to the NBA Finals, they're going to still be playing basketball for over another month. So you don't want to risk De'Aaron Fox in even if it's a clinching scenario, a home game against the Utah Jazz. There's no reason to rush him back, just like there was no reason to rush Kevin Huerter back from his injury, even with big games against the teams like the Boston Celtics. So the Kings are erring on the side of caution. Davion Mitchell got the start tonight in place of De'Aaron. Had another really solid game. I want to make sure I mention that. He's been playing a lot better as of late. Again, stepped into De'Aaron Fox's shoes and didn't try and be Fox, just allowed himself to be Davion Mitchell. He's been showing off his handles a little bit more. He might have some of the best handles on the team. Had a couple moments where he got some oohs and ahs from the crowd. Ultimately finished with 11 points, 6 assists, and 4 steals. Even as a starter, Davion, I'll take that every day of the week. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by a sponsor that's there to help you make money with you doing things that you're already doing, whether you're going back to school shopping, just your average grocery shopping per week. Ibotta helps you earn cash back on the shopping purchases that you're already making. You can earn cash back on every shopping trip. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods. You can either link your loyalty account or upload your receipts after you shop and get cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 a year in real cash back. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, or you could cash back to use that flight that you've been eyeing to go take some kind of vacation, maybe a fancy dinner that you've been craving. A typical basket of groceries was over $50 more expensive at the end of 2022 than the beginning of the year due to inflation. You could earn 2.5 times that in cash back from Ibotta, or even more depending upon how much you use Ibotta. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using our code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKED. Again, if you don't know what clinching scenario to root for, this is what you want. You want the Minnesota Timberwolves to win tomorrow so the Sacramento Kings don't clinch tomorrow, setting up the opportunity for the Kings to clinch in this building in front of their home crowd on Monday. But of course, if they clinch tomorrow, it's not going to be any less of a celebration. We're, of course, going to have a Locked On Kings podcast tomorrow if they do clinch, not to mention it's a Sunday. My ABC 10 duties, I'll be doing an episode of Toyota Sports Extra tomorrow, which is our 30-minute sports show at 11:30 p.m. Of course, that will be all dedicated to covering the Kings breaking that playoff drought, so you can tune in for that as well. But again, we don't want them to clinch tomorrow. We want them to clinch on Monday. But whenever they clinch, I shared this with you yesterday, and in case you missed it, I want to let you know, I want you to be a part of that episode after they clinch, because I know I am going to be maybe emotional. I don't know how I'm going to react to it, but I know I'm going to think back to these last 16 years. I'm going to think back to my entire life as a Sacramento Kings fan and all the time that I spent covering the team professionally. And I'm just going to reminisce a little bit and talk about the journey and celebrate the journey as well as the accomplishment. And I know there are a lot of you out there that are going to feel the same way. So what I want, instead of just me talking to you for half an hour, I want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what the Kings breaking the playoff drought means from you in the moment. So if you feel comfortable to leave a video, the main way is going to be on social media, on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack, but you can also email them to me if you want, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave a video, just a short video explaining what it means to you. I want to compile as many of those videos as I can and make a little compilation of that so you can hear your voices and we can celebrate as a fan base the Kings finally ending this ridiculously long playoff drought. So I hope you will join me for that. Keep an eye out. If the Kings do clinch tomorrow, we're doing a podcast. But if they don't, then the next time you'll hear me is hopefully after the Kings clinch on Monday night in the Golden One Center against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I appreciate your support so much. Met so many of you again here at the Kings game, including my guy Kelly from Japan. I finally got to meet Kelly. I believe he also got to meet Matthew Dellavedova. Kelly is not just a diehard Kings fan, he hosts a podcast where he covers Australian basketball players, and Matthew Dellavedova, of course, is one of the major players that he covers. So I actually appeared on Kelly's podcast in Japan a number of months ago. It was the first ever English podcast that he did, and his English is phenomenal. He and his beautiful wife were here in Sacramento as part of their honeymoon. They're also going to see like the Bay Area and going to other places while they're here, but they were here the last 2 nights. So to be able to meet Kelly was really, really cool for me. I took a picture with him. Hopefully some of you got to meet him too, but I believe he also got the opportunity to meet Matthew Dellavedova after the game, which is really, really cool. And it's not just people like Kelly. I've met so many amazing Kings fans over the course of the season. So many of you have approached me saying that you listen. I do not take that for granted. Thank you so much. If you ever spot me, yell at me, wave me down. I'd love to chat with you, or at the very least wave at you and thank you for how much you support this podcast and how much you support this organization and this team. It really, truly means the world to me. Thank you so much. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings, whenever it is. Hopefully it's the Locked On Kings Clinch the Playoffs edition. Can't wait for that. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.